this idea of the murky, fiery depths of Tartarus. Now, in the Republic, he tells a famous story, and this is a very mythopoetic story, but I really like it because it's a near-death experience. A very clear, excellent text, actually, very detailed. I can't get into all the details, it's way too detailed. But in rough outline, it's the story of E-R, what happened to was in a battle, and he was killed. And they wanted to return his body to his home village, his home city. And it was quite a ways away. It took them 12 days to get back to the city. And so they carried the body, no sign of life, he seemed totally dead. And they were getting ready to burn him on the pyre, and all of a sudden he sat up. And he came back to life again. And this became a very famous incident throughout Greece at the time. And everyone's like, what happened? And then he tells this story about what happened to his soul when he died. And it's a very famous text. And I can't get into all the detail because it's so complicated. But roughly, he said, when they struck the mortal blow, I felt my suke, my soul, go out of my body. I went up to a middle realm, which he also describes as a meadow, in which souls meet. And he said, and there I saw the ascending and descending nature of the souls. He saw the souls coming up from earth into this meadow who had just died. He saw souls ascending into the higher realm of the life with the gods. He saw souls descending from the higher realm of the gods back to the common meadow, and he saw souls descending back into earth in order to be reborn. So he saw the whole cycle, and Plato gives it in great detail. And he actually describes the fate of souls because he said, well, what did you do? We stood around in the field and talked about our experiences. What's it like up there? What was it like down on earth? Oh, some of them were coming up from Hades, where they'd undergone purification, before their next rebirth in life. So you have to envision that field with a lot of people standing around, souls standing about, speaking about their experiences in heaven and earth and in Hades. And then the ground is covered with numbered lots, little placards with numbers on them that was laying all over the ground. You have to pick your placard, which will be the one that will determine your rebirth. This is a typical Greek idea. There's a little kind of gamble in there. You pick the number that appeals to you, and you hang on to it. And then the three fates, the three goddesses that rule over this meadow, past, present, and future, determine the fate of the individual, and they decide what will happen based on your number is called. So you go up before the judge says, okay, so you're going to get this, and they assign a guiding spirit to you, right? And everybody gets assigned, and then you have to march across the meadow of forgetfulness, and you have to drink from the water of complete oblivion, and then a storm comes and you are shot like lightning back down to earth. So they say, oh, meteors. Oh, here they come, the glowing meteor from heaven. And then wake up and not remember, be born and not remember anything about your experience. This is a very famous story, and it captures the whole idea of this tradition. Very Orphic, I might add, by the way, because and there's a moral lesson in here, which I think is really worth repeating. He says, yes, they had to choose lives. That was the most dangerous part, because they would try to figure out by lot what life you want. When you're called, you can choose. What kind of life do you want? You want to be an animal? What kind of animal? You want to be a human being? What stakes? He said, this is the dangerous point in the whole process. And he said, I noticed those who had come down from heaven after a long period of purification and enjoyment in heaven chose badly. They were also idealistic and optimistic. And they chose to be, they didn't choose wisely. But the ones coming up from Hades who had suffered, they chose very well. They were careful. So there's a good moral right there that he communicates. There's something to be said about suffering here. Something good. And then in the story of the Phaedrus, he talks about a very beautiful image, which is the winged soul, how all of us, this is where the angel imagery comes from, by the way. You know, the whole theory about angels, the winged beings and everything, comes right out of the Phaedrus, in which he describes the soul as a winged being and that falls to earth and loses its wings. And the wings become contracted, you know, and you can't fly, you can't open your wings up, you know. And they fall into the world, too weak to ascend. They fall into strife and competition. They become addicted. He actually uses the word addicted. They become addicted, they become forgetful, and they feed on popular opinion, and they do not see the true mystery of life. Just reflect on that. So what is the winged life? And this is the story he tells, that 10 good lives, if you live according to a good philosophy and do no harm, that you can be reborn and your wings will be returned to you. Though if you're a philosopher and think deeply, you can get it in 3. So 3 lives will bring you back. And that is by the contemplation of beauty and goodness, because the contemplation of beauty and goodness warms, moistens, and melts the rigidity of the human being and the contracted wings, and ecstasy leads to the recovery of beauty, and new wings sprout from the soul, and the winged soul awakens to the higher life. That's a direct quotation, to the mysteries of that is in that higher life. I love this painting. It's just a meditative painting. And then we get to the Timaeus, which is the final integration of the theory for Plato, in which he creates a cosmological frame for the theory of reincarnation. And this theory is quite developed in the Timaeus, and he talks again about the pre-existence of the soul. He says all souls were created first, and then later came the world and the evolution of the spheres and the different planets, and with Earth surrounded by the elements, earth, water, air, and fire, and the living stars that surround the whole. But he adds a new dimension here. He says the first soul that was created, because, you know, you're going to create a bunch of souls, who gets created first? The first soul that is created is the universal soul that infuses the totality of the cosmos. So this, you have to think of, and it's feminine. She, they say, the universal soul, she infuses all that exists everywhere from circumference to center. And everything within it is alive with soul. So it's an entire, totally ensouled cosmos filled with beauty and life. And this holding of the cosmos then links to each individual soul. And we're going to find out that a little bit later this is an important theory, because our souls are linked in this theory, according to Plato, the universal soul that is part of, infuses all life and all reality.